Hi everyone, this is Rick again. Last lecture, we covered the idea of frailty and its evolvement. In this lecture, we will go further into the details of how frailty is supported by different models. After this lecture, you will learn 3 different models that support the concept of frailty and the relevant causes and adverse outcomes. Let's get started. In this lecture, we will talk about theories explaining the causes of frailty and how frailty affects our daily life. The cumulative deficit model was suggested by Rockwood and his team in 2007. It basically means that the more things individuals have wrong with them, the higher likelihood that they will be frail. There are many symptoms, signs, disabilities, and diseases that an individual might experience or might have experienced, which could lead to diverse deficits. The impacts of the deficits cannot be entirely eliminated. Instead, the effects would be accumulated. Hence, a greater risk of being frail will be developed, and which is followed by adverse outcomes, such as health services use, institutionalization, and death. The idea of how cumulative deficit model explains frailty is pretty similar to the disenablement theory, which was mentioned before. In the phenotype model, frailty was conceptualized as a phenotype with 5 clinical characteristics. They are unintentional weight loss, low muscle strength, slow gait speed, low physical activity, and exhaustion. Freeh's team conducted an observational study where a total of 5,899 participants were followed up for at least 4 years. The results of the study showed that these 5 characteristics were predictive of incident force, worsening mobility or disability, hospitalization, and death. This study also proposed the cycle of frailty to explain the associations and clinical signs and symptoms of frailty. The cycle may possibly start with chronic undernutrition, disease, and aging. They lead to a loss of muscle mass, which we call sarcopenia. Then, the sarcopenia leads to a reduced metabolic rate, reduced muscle strength, and reduced oxygen consumption. Reduced strength and reduced oxygen consumption lead to reduced gait speed. Then, it will lead to exhaustion. When exhaustion met reduced metabolic rate, the consequence is lowering the energy expenditure, that is, lower physical activity level. The low physical activity level would induce weight loss, and the cycle repeats. The implication of the study is that chronic undernutrition and low physical activity or a sedentary lifestyle are the 3 key mediators facilitating the progression of frailty. Aging plays a role, but these treatable conditions become therapeutic targets to slow down aging or prevention of aging-associated adverse outcomes, for example death, hospitalization, and mobility. Here are 3 pentagons. Each represents a person. Each angle represents one frailty characteristic. They are low physical activity, unintentional weight loss, low grip strength, slow gait speed, and exhaustion. The gray area on each pentagon shows that at least one characteristic has been recognized on that person. For example, the pentagon on the left represents that the person is recognized with one frailty characteristic, which is low physical activity level. In this case, we could classify that the person might possibly have a low frailty level. The pentagon in the middle means that the person is recognized with two frailty characteristics, which are low physical activity and low grip strength. As there is one more characteristic that has been found, the person might possibly have a medium frailty level compared to the person on the left. For the pentagon on the right, it shows that the person is recognized with four frailty characteristics. Except unintentional weight loss, this implies that the person might possibly have a higher frailty level. Apart from low physical activity or sedentary lifestyle, cognitive impairment would contribute to the development of frailty as well. In the aging process, there is DNA damage, mitochondrial deletions, and shortening telomeres. Aging brings lots of changes in our body at the molecular level. Some well-known changes include DNA damage, oxidative stress, mitochondrial deletions, and shortened telomeres. These changes impair our body systems, which lead to chronic inflammation, neuroendocrine dysregulation such as insulin resistance, sarcopenia, and impaired clotting. The impairment of multiple body systems leads to the emergence of many detrimental clinical factors such as undernutrition, low physical activity, and cognitive impairment. These detrimental clinical factors accelerate the progression of frailty syndromes, such as weakness, weight loss, exhaustion, low physical activity, and slowness. These phenotype syndromes lead to adverse outcomes such as falls, disabilities, dependency, and death. The implication of the three detrimental clinical factors, undernutrition, low physical activity, and cognitive impairment, which is treatable by lifestyle modification interventions. Furthermore, the phenotype of frailty is notable. Therefore, treating the detrimental clinical factors and identification of the frailty are important to prevent accelerated aging and adverse outcomes such as falls, disability, dependency, and death. In summary, cumulative deficits model, the more illnesses, accidents, or incidents experienced, the higher risk of being frail. In the phenotype model, chronic undernutrition, diseases, and aging will lead to sarcopenia, which might lead to muscle weakness, poor gait speed, weight loss, exhaustion, and low physical activity level. In physiological model, it explains that physiological causes of the frailty and its adverse outcomes.